Keeper Sujin moved through the vast crystal halls of the archive, her photosynthetic skin glowing softly in the filtered starlight. The Zilani had served as the galaxy's memory keepers for over 10,000 cycles, preserving the knowledge of countless civilizations. Their peaceful nature made them perfect mediators between quarreling species, and their plant-like biology meant they could survive on almost any world with a sun. Today felt different. Sujin could sense the tension in the air, carried by the chemical signals her people used to communicate emotion. Archive Master Wonho had called an emergency gathering, something that happened perhaps once in a century. She quickened her pace, her root-like feet making soft clicking sounds on the crystal floor. The communication chamber buzzed with activity. Dozens of Zilani worked at organic terminals that grew from the walls like flowering vines. At the center stood Wonho, his ancient bark-like skin marked with the wisdom rings of 15 centuries. His bioluminescent patches flickered in patterns of deep concern. "Keeper Sujin," Wonho called, his voice like wind through leaves. "Your expertise in extinct civilizations is needed. We have received something troubling. All red or 4. Communications." Officer Minjae approached them, her young green skin pale with worry. The signal came from the Outer Rim Research Station. They were studying mineral formations on dead worlds. But this signal contains much more than a simple distress call. Sujin accepted the data crystal that Minjae offered. As she touched it, information flowed directly into her consciousness through her people's natural bioneural network. What she experienced made her luminescent patches dim with shock. The signal showed scenes of destruction. A research station under attack by ships she did not recognize. The attackers were aggressive, their vessels bristling with weapons. They moved with the efficiency of a species that lived for conquest. But embedded within the distress signal was something else, something that made Sujin's chlorophyll-rich blood run cold. Mathematical sequences. Prime numbers arranged in patterns that she had seen only once before. In the deepest archives where the most dangerous knowledge was kept. "Archive Master," she whispered, her bioluminescence flickering in patterns of alarm. "These mathematical patterns, they match the extinct Deathworlder files." Wonho's ancient eyes focused on her with sudden intensity. "Show me." Sujin guided them to her research station, where she had spent years cataloging the civilizations that had vanished from the galaxy. Most had died from natural disasters, plagues, or simple time. But there was one category that even the peaceful Zilani approached with extreme caution: the Deathworlders. The files appeared on the organic screen, glowing with soft amber light. "Here," Sujin pointed. "Species designation: human. Homeworld: Earth. Classification: extinct Deathworlder. Apex predator species." Minjae leaned closer to read the ancient text. "What does it mean, Deathworlder?" Wonho's bark-like skin seemed to grow even more weathered. "It means their home planet tried to kill them every single day, and they survived by becoming deadlier than everything else on their world. The old records speak of creatures that evolved not just intelligence, but an unstoppable drive to protect their own." Sujin scrolled through more data. According to this, humans came from a world where the weather could kill, where predators hunted in packs, where even the plants were poisonous. They had to fight just to breathe. Their gravity was 3 times what most species consider normal. Their atmosphere was so reactive that it would burn most organic matter. And yet they thrived, Wonho added quietly. "The archives say they were the only species to master their death world completely. They became so successful that they spread to other planets. But that was 5,000 cycles ago. The records show they went silent. We assumed they had finally destroyed themselves, as violent species often do." Minjae's bioluminescence flickered with confusion. "But if they are extinct, why are there mathematical signatures in this distress signal?" The question hung in the air like morning fog. Sujin continued reading the ancient files, her patches growing brighter with each piece of information she absorbed. Listen to this warning from the Galactic Council archives. Under no circumstances should any species attempt hostile contact with humans if they are discovered to be alive. Their evolution on a death world has made them uniquely dangerous. They possess an instinct to protect other species that they consider innocent, but they will show no mercy to those they perceive as aggressors. Wonho moved to the chamber's central communication array. Minjae, replay the original distress signal. Focus on the mathematical sequences. As the signal played again, the patterns became clear. Prime numbers, in groups of 3. A countdown sequence. Geometric progressions that matched exactly what the archives described as human mathematical fingerprints. They are not extinct, Sujin breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. The realization hit the chamber like a shock wave. If humans still existed, and if they had received the distress signal, then the aggressive species attacking the research station had made a terrible mistake. The archives contained story after story of species that had threatened human-protected worlds. None of those aggressive species existed anymore. Wonho began sending urgent messages through the bioneural network to all Zilani stations. All. Our people must be warned. If the humans respond to this signal, everything in our sector of the galaxy is about to change. Sujin felt her photosynthetic cells working overtime as adrenaline-like chemicals flooded her system. Archive Master, should we respond to the research station? Should we try to help? The old Zilani considered this carefully. His people were peaceful. They had no weapons beyond simple defensive systems. Their ships were designed for exploration and knowledge gathering, not warfare. Against an aggressive species, like the one in the signal, they would be helpless. We will monitor, Wonho decided. If the humans truly still exist, if they respond to this signal, then we will witness something the galaxy has not seen for 5,000 cycles. We will see what happens when sleeping Deathworlders awaken to protect the innocent. As if summoned by his words, new signals began appearing on their detection arrays. Ships were moving in the dead space beyond their borders. Large ships that had been hiding so well that the galaxy had forgotten they existed. Sujin watched the displays with growing amazement and terror. How many ships are out there? Drew. Minjae worked frantically at her station. I cannot get accurate readings. There are too many. They appear to be emerging from hidden bases throughout the sector. Wonho's ancient wisdom told him that they were about to witness history being made. The galaxy's most dangerous species was waking up, and they were not happy about what they had found. Admiral Heijin Park stood in the command center of Earth Defense Station Alpha, watching as streams of data flowed across holographic displays. The station hung in the darkness between Earth and Mars, one of dozens of hidden military installations that had protected human space for the past 5,000 years. The isolation had been necessary. After humanity's first contact with galactic civilization had ended badly, they had chosen to withdraw. Better to let the galaxy think they were extinct than to constantly fight species who saw humans as a threat simply for existing. Lieutenant Unsu Kim approached the Admiral's platform, her expression tense. Ma'am, the signal analysis is complete. It's definitely from a non-human source, and they are in serious trouble. Hajin studied the data with practiced efficiency. At 57 years old, she had spent her entire career preparing for threats that might never come. The human military had grown strong in isolation, but they had never expected to use their strength to help strangers. What do we know about the attacking force? She asked. They call themselves the Vaktar, Kim replied. Based on their communication patterns and ship designs, they are a typical aggressive expansion species. They attack smaller civilizations, take their resources, and move on to the next target. Captain Junho Lee entered the command center, his special operations uniform bearing the scars of countless training exercises. Admiral, I have reviewed the tactical data. The species under attack appears to be completely peaceful. No weapon signatures, no military vessels. They are like sheep being hunted by wolves. Hyjin felt something stir in her chest. An emotion that had been passed down through countless generations of humans who had survived on a world that constantly tried to kill them. It was the instinct to protect those who could not protect themselves. "What do we know about the peaceful species?" she asked. Kim brought up new displays. They call themselves the Zilani. Plant-based life forms, extremely advanced in science and technology, but with no military capability. According to their broadcasts, they serve as knowledge keepers and mediators for multiple species. They are librarians, Junho added with a slight smile. Space librarians being attacked by space pirates. The Admiral moved to the main strategic display, which showed the locations of all human military assets. For 5,000 years, humanity had built and prepared in secret. Massive shipyards hidden in asteroid fields, military bases inside hollow moons, fleets of vessels that had never been detected by outside observers. Recommendations? Junho stepped forward. "Ma'am, if we respond to this signal, we reveal ourselves to the galaxy. There will be no going back to isolation." "Understood. But what does your gut tell you, Captain?" The Special Operations Commander looked at the tactical display showing the Vaktar ships surrounding the helpless research station. "My gut tells me that bullies need to be stopped. Admiral, whether they are human bullies or alien bullies." Kim nodded in agreement. The Zilani have done nothing to deserve this attack. They were simply studying rocks on a dead planet when the Vaktar decided to expand into their territory. Heijin walked to the observation window that looked out into the star field. Somewhere out there, innocent people were dying while she made calculations and considered consequences. Her grandfather had been a soldier on Earth during the last great war before space travel. He had taught her that the strongest bear the responsibility to protect the weakest. "Kim, send a message to Earth Fleet Command. Tell them Admiral Park is requesting full authorization for Operation Guardian Angel." "Ma'am, that will mobilize every available ship in human space," Kim said, her voice filled with awe. "Exactly. If we are going to announce ourselves to the galaxy, we are going to do it properly. Junho, I want your Marines ready for boarding operations. If the Vaktar want to see what a Deathworld species is capable of, we will show them." Within minutes, the communication arrays throughout human space lit up with encrypted signals. On hidden bases, from the asteroid belt to the outer colonies, massive ships began powering up their drives. Vessels that had been waiting in silence for decades suddenly roared to life. Admiral Park watched as her command display showed the response. Dreadnoughts emerged from camouflaged asteroid bases. Carrier groups departed from hidden stations. Battle cruisers that had been disguised as space debris suddenly revealed their true nature. Captain Lee reviewed the fleet composition on his tactical pad. "Ma'am, we will have over 300 ships responding within 6 hours. The Vanguard fleet can reach the Zilani research station in 18 hours. "What about the Vaktar force?" Heijin asked. "Intelligence suggests approximately 50 ships, mostly medium-weight cruisers and destroyers. They are designed for overwhelming weaker opponents, not for fighting a prepared military force." Kim looked up from her communication station. "Admiral, I am receiving requests from ships throughout the fleet. Everyone wants to volunteer for the first wave." Hyjin was not surprised. Humans had spent 5,000 years training for the day when they might need to protect innocent life from aggressive species. Every officer, every enlisted person, every Marine had joined the service knowing that they might one day face exactly this situation. "Tell them there will be plenty of work for everyone," she said. "This will not be our last intervention if other species decide to prey on the peaceful." The Admiral moved to the main command chair and activated the fleet-wide communication system. Throughout human space, her image appeared on screens in hundreds of ships and thousands of military installations. "People of Earth Defense Force," she began, her voice calm and steady. For 5,000 years, we have protected ourselves by remaining hidden. Today, that changes. We have received a distress signal from a peaceful species under attack by aggressive forces. These innocent people have done nothing wrong except be weak enough to be preyed upon. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Our ancestors survived the deadliest planet in the galaxy, not by running from danger, but by standing up to it. Today, we honor their memory by standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. The communication ended, and Heejin turned to her staff. Jun-ho, take your best people and prepare boarding teams. When we meet these Vaktar, I want them to understand that attacking peaceful species in human space is a very bad idea. With pleasure, Admiral, Jun-ho replied, his smile predatory. As the first human ships began their journey toward the Zilani research station, Admiral Park allowed herself a moment of reflection. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy in the strongest possible way. The age of isolation was ending, and the age of protection was about to begin. The sleeping giants were awake, and they were not happy about what they had found. Warlord Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, watching his fleet systematically destroy the pathetic defenses of the Zilani research station. The plant creatures had managed to put up force shields and call for help, but no help would come. The Vaktar had chosen this remote location specifically because it was far from any military presence. Status report, Zektar growled, his scarred hide reflecting the red glow of the battle displays. Sub-Commander Graktal approached with the confident swagger of a predator that had never met anything stronger than itself. Warlord, their shields are failing. Another hour, and we will break through. The plant creatures have no weapons beyond basic defensive systems. Zektar smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth that had evolved for tearing meat from living prey. The Vaktar were proud of their predator heritage. They had clawed their way to the top of their world's food chain, then carried that dominance to the stars. Weak species like the Zilani existed only to be conquered. Have they responded to our demands? He asked. They refuse to surrender their knowledge archives. They claim their information belongs to all galactic species. Zektar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Typical weakness. They would rather die than admit that strength determines ownership. Very well. When we break through their shields, take everything. Leave enough survivors to operate their equipment. Eliminate the rest. On the research station, Research Director Tae-young coordinated the evacuation of non-essential personnel while trying to protect the irreplaceable archives. The Zilani had no experience with war, but they understood the value of knowledge and were willing to die to protect it. Security Chief Dong-min worked desperately to strengthen their failing shields. His people were scientists and scholars, not soldiers. Their defensive systems had been designed to protect against asteroid impacts and solar radiation, not military-grade weapons. Director, Dong-min called across the emergency command center. Shield strength is down to 30%. They are concentrating fire on the main archive building. Tae-young felt his bioluminescent patches dim with despair. The main archive contained the history of 100 species, including extinct civilizations whose stories would be lost forever if the Vaktar destroyed them. Transfer everything to the emergency backup cores, he ordered. If we must lose the station, we will not lose the knowledge. Across the station, Zilani scientists worked frantically to save what they could. Young researchers carried data crystals containing the memories of entire civilizations. Elder Keepers transmitted compressed archives to hidden storage sites throughout Zilani space. Back on the Bone Crusher, Zektar received reports from his scout ships, patrolling the system's edge. Warlord, we are detecting some unusual readings at the system boundary. Our sensors are having difficulty getting clear scans. Define unusual, Zektar demanded. Mass readings that appear and disappear. Drive signatures that do not match any known species. The scout commanders think it might be sensor ghosts from the local star's magnetic field. Zektar dismissed the report with a wave of his clawed hand. Focus on the attack. If anything approaches, our fleet can handle it. 50 ships of the Vaktar Navy have never been defeated. What the Vaktar sensors could not properly detect were the human ships emerging from faster-than-light travel at the very edge of the system. Admiral Park's Vanguard fleet had arrived ahead of schedule, and they were taking time to assess the situation before announcing their presence. On the human flagship Retribution, Captain Junho Lee studied the tactical display with professional interest. 50 Vaktar ships in a standard siege formation. They are focusing all firepower on the research station's shields rather than trying to capture intact facilities. Admiral Park joined him at the tactical station. What does that tell us about their intentions? They want to destroy rather than capture. This is not about resources or territory. This is about eliminating a peaceful species for the pleasure of it. The Admiral felt her jaw tighten. How long before the station's shields fail? Based on current damage rates, approximately 1 hour. The Zelani are trying to evacuate, but they have limited transport capacity. Park activated the fleet communication system. All ships. This is Admiral Park. We are looking at a simple situation. Aggressive predators attacking innocent civilians. Remember your training, and remember why we exist. Guardian Angel Protocol is now in effect. Throughout the human fleet, weapon systems came online. Targeting computers locked onto Vaktar ships. Marines prepared for boarding operations. For 5,000 years, humanity had prepared for this exact moment. On the research station, Keeper Sujin worked frantically to save the Deathworlder archives. If they were going to die, she wanted to preserve the knowledge that might someday help other peaceful species defend themselves. As she transferred the final files, her bioneural interface detected something that made her patches flare with surprise. New signals were appearing throughout the system. Large signals. Ships that seemed to materialize from nowhere. Director Tae-young, she called urgently. I am detecting massive drive signatures approaching the station. Tae-young looked up from the evacuation coordinates. Vaktar reinforcements? Negative. The signatures are completely different. Unknown configuration. Unknown technology. Security Chief Dongmin ran his scans again, his patches flickering with confusion. I count at least 30 ships, possibly more. They are much larger than the Vaktar vessels. On the Bone Crusher, Zektar finally received accurate sensor readings from his scout ships. Warlord. We have a problem. Large ships are approaching from the system's edge. Unknown species, unknown capabilities. How many ships? Zektar demanded. At least 40, sir, possibly more. They are running silent except for their drive signatures. For the first time since the attack began, Zektar felt a touch of uncertainty. The Vaktar had built their empire by carefully choosing their targets. They attacked only species that could not fight back effectively. Unknown ships with unknown capabilities were not part of the plan. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Prepare for possible combat operations. As the human ships moved closer, their formation became visible to both the Vaktar and the Zelani. These were not exploration vessels or merchant ships. These were warships, built by a species that understood warfare at a fundamental level. Admiral Park opened a channel to the research station. Zelani vessels, this is Admiral Haejin Park of the Earth Defense Force. Please continue your evacuation procedures and maintain your current position. On the research station, the surviving Zelani stared at their communication displays in shock. The mathematical patterns in the transmission matched exactly what Sujin had found in the archives. Director, she whispered, her voice filled with awe and terror. They are humans. The Deathworlders are here. Zektar intercepted the communication and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The archives of conquered species contained warnings about Deathworlders, but the Vaktar had dismissed them as myths told by the weak to make themselves feel better about being conquered. Now, looking at the approaching human fleet, Zektar realized that some myths were more dangerous than reality. Admiral Hyjin Park stood calmly on the bridge of the Retribution as her fleet moved into attack formation. Around her, human officers worked with the quiet efficiency that came from 5,000 years of military evolution. Every movement was precise. Every order clear and direct. "Communications, open a channel to the Vaktar fleet," she commanded. Lieutenant Yoon-soo Kim activated the transmission array. "Channel open, Admiral." Park's voice carried across space with the authority of someone who had never needed to make empty threats. "Vaktar vessels, this is Admiral Park of the Human Earth Defense Force. You are attacking a peaceful research station belonging to a non-military species. Cease your assault immediately and withdraw from this system." On the Bone Crusher, Warlord Zektar stared at the transmission with a mixture of confusion and anger. In his mind, might determined right. The strong took from the weak. This was the natural order of the universe. "Human vessel," he replied, his voice filled with the arrogance of someone who had never lost a battle. "You will withdraw immediately. This system is now under Vaktar control. Any interference will be considered an act of war." The silence that followed lasted exactly 10 seconds. Then Admiral Park's response came back, and every human on every ship in the fleet felt a familiar chill run down their spines. It was the voice of a predator that had just been challenged by prey that did not understand the food chain. "Vaktar fleet," Park said quietly. "You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal, or we will remove you from this system permanently." Zektar laughed, the sound echoing through his ship's communication system. 30 seconds? You have 40 ships, we have 50. Your threats are meaningless. 25 seconds, Park replied. Captain Jun-Ho Lee smiled grimly as he watched the tactical display. "Admiral, all Marine units are ready for boarding operations. The Vaktar ships use standard airlock configurations. We can be inside their vessels in under 3 minutes. 15 seconds, Park announced. Zektar felt a moment of doubt as he studied his sensor readings. The human ships were larger than his vessels, and their energy signatures suggested power plants far beyond anything in Vaktar technology. But he had 50 ships and a reputation to maintain. "All vessels," he commanded. "Attack formation. Show these humans what happens when they challenge the Vaktar Navy." "Time," Admiral Park said simply. What happened next would be discussed in military academies throughout the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. The human fleet did not charge forward in a glorious battle formation. They did not fire massive volleys of energy weapons at maximum range. Instead, they did something that no aggressive species had ever encountered before. They fought like humans. The Retribution and her sister ships moved with a coordination that seemed impossible for individual vessels. Where Vaktar ships expected to find targets, they found empty space. Where they expected empty space, human ships appeared with weapons already locked on target. Captain Lee's Marines launched in assault pods that moved like guided missiles through space. The pods were small, fast, and nearly invisible to Vaktar sensors. By the time the alien ships detected them, human soldiers were already cutting through their hull plating. Zektar watched in horror as his fleet began to fall apart. How are they moving so fast? How are they coordinating without detectable communications? His tactical officer, Subcommander Graktal, worked frantically at his station. "Sir, they appear to be using quantum entanglement communication systems. Real-time coordination across the entire fleet. And their ships are more maneuverable than anything we have ever encountered." Facts. The first Vaktar ship to fall was the destroyer Bloodfang. Human Marines cut through its hull in 3 separate locations simultaneously, secured the bridge in under 2 minutes, and had the entire crew in restraints before they could activate their self-destruct systems. "Warlord?" came a panicked transmission from the cruiser Dark Talon. "Humans are aboard our ship. They move like shadows. They know our ship layout better than we do." Zektar could not understand what he was hearing. How could an unknown species know Vaktar ship designs? The answer was simple, though he would not learn it until later. Humanity had been watching the galaxy for 5,000 years. They knew everything about every military species in their sector of space. On the research station, Keeper Su-jin and Research Director Tae-young watched the battle with amazement. The humans fought with a precision that seemed almost artistic. Each movement had purpose. Each attack accomplished multiple objectives. They are not just defeating the Vaktar, Su-jin observed. They are capturing them. Tae-young noticed the same thing. They could destroy those ships easily, but they are choosing to preserve life, even the lives of their enemies. Tae-young noticed the same. Tae-young noticed, Arling. Tae-young noticed the lives of their enemies. Admiral Park coordinated the battle from her command chair like a conductor leading an orchestra. Captain Lee, status on boarding operations? Ma'am, we have secured 7 Vaktar vessels with minimal casualties on both sides. Their crews are confused but unharmed. They seem surprised that we are not executing prisoners. Continue with standard prisoner protocols. Medical treatment for wounded, proper food, and shelter for all detainees. We will show them how civilized species conduct warfare. As the battle continued, more Vaktar ships found themselves overwhelmed by human tactics they could not counter. Marines appeared inside their vessels as if transported by magic. Human ships struck from angles that should have been impossible. Weapons systems failed as human cyber warfare specialists took control of alien computers. Zektar realized with growing horror that his mighty fleet was being dismantled like a training exercise. All ships, retreat. Emergency, withdrawal. But even retreat was denied to them. Human ships had positioned themselves to cut off escape routes without the Vaktar ever noticing. The alien fleet was trapped in a cage of steel and energy that had been built around them while they focused on their attack. Vaktar flagship. Admiral Park's voice came across the communication system. Prepare to be boarded. Your crew will not be harmed if they surrender peacefully. Zektar looked around his bridge at officers who had never known defeat. His weapons were offline. His engines were disabled. Human assault pods were already attaching to his hull. In 30 minutes, his entire fleet had been reduced to helpless prey by a species he had never heard of. Warlord, Graktal said quietly. They are cutting through the airlock. What are your orders? Zektar set down his weapons and activated the ship's surrender protocol. Order all crew to lay down arms and comply with boarding procedures. We have learned today that there are predators in this galaxy far more dangerous than ourselves. The airlock opened, and Captain Junho Lee stepped onto the bridge of the Bone Crusher. He was not a large man by human standards, but to the Vaktar, he seemed to radiate the quiet confidence of someone who had never doubted the outcome of this engagement. I am Captain Lee of the Earth Defense Force Marines, he said politely. You and your crew are now prisoners of war. You will be treated according to galactic conventions for the handling of military prisoners. Medical attention will be provided for any wounded personnel. Zektar stared at the human in confusion. Captain Lee seemed genuinely surprised by the question. Execute you? Why would we do that? You surrendered honorably when defeat became inevitable. Prisoners of war are to be treated with dignity and respect. For the first time in his life, Warlord Zektar began to understand that there might be forms of strength that did not require cruelty. The medical bay of the Retribution buzzed with activity as human doctors worked alongside Zilani healers to treat the wounded from both sides of the brief battle. Admiral Hagen Park walked through the facility, observing something that would have seemed impossible to most galactic species. Humans, treating their former enemies with the same care they showed their new allies. Dr. Kyung-Suk Han, the fleet's chief medical officer, approached the admiral with her report. Ma'am, we have treated 14 wounded Vaktar and 6 injured Zilani. All patients are stable. The Vaktar seem surprised that we are providing medical care to prisoners. Have any of them explained why they attacked the research station? Park asked. The ones who are willing to talk say they were following standard expansion protocols. They choose targets that cannot fight back effectively, eliminate resistance, and claim the territory and resources. Admiral Park felt a familiar anger rise in her chest. Standard protocols for attacking peaceful civilians. I see. In the research station's restored command center, Keeper Su-jin worked with human technical specialists to repair the damage caused by the Vaktar assault. The humans had brought repair equipment and engineering teams, turning what should have been a disaster into an opportunity for the Zilani to upgrade their systems. Your technology is remarkable, she told Commander Min-suk Chen, the human engineering officer. These shield generators are far more powerful than our original systems. Commander Chen smiled as he calibrated the new equipment. We learned a long time ago that the best defense is to be so strong that no one wants to attack you in the first place. But we also learned that strength without purpose is just another form of weakness. Research Director Tae-young joined them, his bioluminescent patches glowing with gratitude. Commander Chen, I must ask, why did your people help us? We are strangers to you. Because that's what we do, Chen replied simply. Strong people protect weak people. It's not complicated. Captain Jun-ho Lee entered the command center, followed by Archive Master Won-ho. The ancient Zilani had requested a meeting with the human military commander to discuss the implications of humanity's return to galactic affairs. Captain Lee, Won-ho said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. Our archives contain warnings about your species. Warnings that say, humans are the most dangerous predators the galaxy has ever produced. Number since. Those warnings are accurate, Lee admitted without hesitation. We are extremely dangerous. The question is, what we choose to do with that danger. Su-jin looked between the two beings, one ancient and wise, the other young and deadly. What will you do now that the galaxy knows humans still exist? Lee considered the question carefully. We will do what we have always done. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. And we will make it clear to aggressive species that attacking peaceful civilizations is no longer a safe career choice. The conversation was interrupted by a communication from Admiral Park. All senior personnel to the main briefing room. We have received responses from across the galaxy. The briefing room aboard the Retribution was filled with both human officers and Zilani representatives. On the main display, Admiral Park showed intercepts of communications from dozens of species throughout their sector of space. As expected, word of our intervention has spread rapidly, she began. We are receiving 3 types of responses. First, peaceful species like the Zilani are requesting protection agreements and mutual defense treaties. Keeper Su-jin felt her patches brighten with hope. How many species have requested assistance? 23 so far, with more expected. Second, we are receiving surrender requests from aggressive species who had expansion plans in this region. Apparently, our reputation preceded us. Captain Lee smiled grimly. Fear can be a useful diplomatic tool when applied correctly. I.M. says. Third, Admiral Park continued. We are receiving challenges from species who believe they are strong enough to test themselves against human military forces. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. The galaxy was about to become a much more complicated place. Archive Master Won-ho spoke first. Admiral, the Zilani offer our services as mediators and information brokers. Our archives contain detailed knowledge about every known species in this sector. We can help you understand who can be reasoned with and who must be dealt with more directly. Accepted, Park replied immediately. We will need all the intelligence we can get. Dr. Han entered the briefing room with an unexpected guest. Warlord Zektar, now wearing simple prisoner clothing but walking with dignity, had requested to speak with the human leadership. Admiral Park, Zektar said, his voice very different from the arrogant roar he had used during the battle. "I wish to understand something. Your forces could have destroyed my fleet easily. Why did you choose to capture us instead?" Park studied the former warlord carefully. "Because destruction is easy. Any species can kill. Building something better requires more strength than tearing something down." "What will happen to my people?" Zektar asked. "That depends on your people," Captain Lee answered. "Those who wish to return to Vaktar space and live peacefully will be transported home with a clear understanding that attacking peaceful species will result in immediate intervention by human forces." "And those who wish to change?" Zektar asked quietly. The question surprised everyone in the room. Sujin's patches flickered with amazement. "Change how? Change how? Change how? Change how? My species has lived by conquest for so long that we have forgotten what it means to build rather than destroy. Today, I have seen strength that protects rather than dominates. I would like to learn this form of strength." Admiral Park exchanged glances with her senior officers. This was not something they had anticipated. "You would abandon your own people?" "I would try to show my own people a better way," Zektar corrected. "But I understand that trust must be earned over time." 2 months later, the first Galactic Protection Treaty was signed aboard the Retribution. 43 peaceful species agreed to mutual defense pacts with humanity. In exchange, humans would establish patrol routes throughout the sector and respond to any aggressive actions against treaty members. The signing ceremony was attended by representatives from across the galaxy. Keeper Sujin served as the official mediator, while Archive Master Wonho provided historical context and legal guidance. Admiral Park, now bearing the additional title of Galactic Protection Force Commander, addressed the assembled delegates. "Today, we establish a simple principle. Peaceful species will be protected. Aggressive species will be contained. Any civilization that chooses to prey upon the innocent will find themselves facing the full force of humanity's protective instincts." As the ceremony concluded, Sujin found herself standing beside Warlord Zektar, who now wore the uniform of a human military advisor. "Do you regret your choice?" she asked. Zektar looked out at the assembled delegates, representing species that were learning to trust each other for the first time in millennia. "Keeper Sujin, for the first time in my life, I am part of something that builds rather than destroys. How could I regret that?" 1. Outside the massive viewport, human patrol ships moved in formation with vessels from a dozen different species. The age of isolation was over. The age of protection had begun. And throughout the galaxy, aggressive species were learning a simple truth. The sleeping giants were awake, and they took protecting the innocent very seriously indeed.